Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Wellness by Design today. I'm Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer, and I'm really excited today to welcome my guest, Dr. Beverly Yates. Hi, Beverly.
Hey Jane, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. We are talking about diabetes and the hidden factors that affect blood sugar. You're a diabetes expert. But you're also an engineer like me, right? You were a systems
Right.
engineer. And so it's so interesting. I find there's a few of us that have gone from engineering and then onto the natural wellness space. So now you're a naturopathic doctor. You specialize in diabetes and blood
Yep.
sugar. You've even written some books. You've written a book, Heart Health for Black Women, a natural approach to healing and preventing heart disease,
Yes.
including you're a co-author of multiple books, including one with Jack Canfield, The Soul of
Yes.
Success. So that's very exciting. So you've helped thousands of people lower their blood sugar levels.
Mhm.
And I've connected you with you on a lot of different ways, but you're also a guest on my summit for becoming pain free, and
Yeah.
the
Big topic.
connections between diabetes and pain. And you've
Yeah.
got a summit coming up, which we'll talk about as well,
Mhm.
about diabetes. So let's dive in, Beverly, and hear a little bit about why did you switch? Like, if you switched from being an systems engineer to now being a naturopathic doctor, there's always a reason for that. So let's hear about
There's
that.
always a reason. Yeah, it's so interesting. In the world of engineering, what got me even on that path to become an engineer and then the turn to become a naturopathic doctor were a series of pretty simple things, right? As a kid, I always loved science and math. I attended MIT, got my undergraduate degree in electrical engineering, came to Silicon Valley, worked as a systems engineer. That is a one particular path in life. What I found was in working as an engineer, at least at that time, we're talking in the late 1980s, very early 90s, the climate at work around actually doing the work was not particularly friendly or welcoming or inclusive of me. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't overcome other people's preconceived notions and prejudices. So it really made it tough. So it wasn't the rewarding career I thought it would be, despite all of that work. It is no joke, as you know, Jane, to get an engineering degree. It's a lot of work, a lot of commitment. And now
Mhm.
I'm finding a career, I'm doing the job, and there were some things I liked about it, but I found that the people around me weren't necessarily people I wanted to spend time with. So in that, I was like, okay, now what do I do? Because that's a lot of work. You and I, we don't necessarily easily walk away from that kind of commitment because it's non-trivial. This is not
Right.
something you did for a weekend and decided that you didn't like it. That's a whole different thing. So in that, we moved to the Pacific Northwest. I found out I'm quite sensitive to mold. Didn't know that mold could grow on concrete, which it could at the time in the like Portland, Oregon area, Seattle, Washington. That part. It's a very much a kind of a what I want to say a primordial almost forest. It was just so moist at the time, very wet. It rains a lot.
Mm.
So that wasn't the best for my health. I had been exposed to black mold. We had a home we were renting and didn't know it had black mold because we couldn't smell it. Nothing smelled moldy, but yet it turned out later it indeed had black mold and it was making me quite sick. I was brain fogged, exhausted. I naturally have the energy of five people. All of them were missing. I was so tired. And I was in my early 20s and I was like, how and why? What is happening to me? Where did my health go? Long story short, my husband worked with a person at his place of employment, Intel, who had very similar symptoms to me, who'd been profoundly helped by a doctor of naturopathic medicine, right? They're in Oregon licensed and credentialed as a naturopathic physician. Specifically in that state, you can use that title. Long story short, I saw him exactly 3 times. We made tremendous progress quickly. He got it to the root causes of the issues. And one of the first things that I noticed that was different, he actually looked me in the eye and listened for about an hour. I never had anybody pay that kind of attention to my health. And I was like, what's going on? What's he doing? It was so different than a typical medical encounter. Before seeing this naturopathic physician, I spent about a year seeing an allergist and getting shots, conventional allergy shots for mold and other things that they had said I was sensitive to, after scratching my skin. And I'm like, well, isn't my skin gonna be irritated no matter what? I mean, if you scratch it, I didn't understand how that was such a scientific test. And for a year, I kept asking what's in the shots. I'm a science person. This doesn't scare me. I just want to know, what are you injecting? And I didn't get any info. And that left me feeling increasingly uncomfortable, like I wasn't a partner in my own health. Yet I knew I was the one that had to live with it. So if this wasn't the right fit for me, it was going to be my problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the journey for all of us, is to take responsibility for our own health results. I can't say that strongly enough. You have your people on the team, and you have others, maybe if you need the assistance, to advocate for you, but you're the one who lives in your body 24/7. So I was really impressed with the results. I felt so much better quickly, and there wasn't anything strange or weird happening. And I thought, hey, I'm going to check this out. Along the way, I became interested in herbalism and botanical medicine. I did some wildcrafting there in the woods, in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. And I really was like, I think this is for me. So I went from problem solving with things, Jane, right, as an engineer, to problem solving with people. That was the
Right.
transition. So
I
having
get
that big systems view and that overview and the ability to dig deep into sometimes very challenging problems, not daunted by complexity, I think it's beautiful to have an engineering background. I'm sure you found that in your own career.
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, problem solving, right? It's just we're trained as problem solvers. And so
Yeah,
you just take those skills and apply it in different situations. But I
yeah,
really love what you said there, Beverly, about taking responsibility for your health,
right.
because we really haven't been brought up in that paradigm.
Yeah,
We're brought up in a paradigm where we pass our health on to someone else who tells us what to do, who doesn't live in our body, right?
nope.
So that's a hugely important point about taking responsibility, 100% responsibility for where you are and where you want to go, right?
Yeah, exactly,
So
exactly.
how did you, so mold and your own recovery from mold and your
Mhm.
experience with a I say naturopathic. I know a lot
It's
of people
fine.
who say
Both are correct.
naturopathic doctor, um, shone a light on that type of root cause, getting that
Mhm.
root cause medicine.
Right.
So what led you to specialize in diabetes?
Another thing around that focus, that brilliant, beautiful focus on root causes, right? So my initial work was focused with people, again, systems and digging into problems with heart disease, congestive heart failure, things of that nature, along with gut issues, right? Because the gut is just such an important barometer for health.
Yeah.
And in the course of that career, in the 90s, what I found was in the 2000s, I noticed this steady, relentless trend of people coming into the clinic who also had various kinds of blood sugar problems, right? Maybe they had type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes. Maybe they had earlier symptoms on that journey to, say, dementia or Alzheimer's. Perhaps they had insulin resistance. Maybe they had PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome, things like that. All of them point to blood sugar related issues. And as I was starting to check out the info from NIH, CDC, other kinds of data gatherers, particularly for US health, you could see, just like heart disease was a known, established number one killer of people in the US, diabetes was the one that was underdiagnosed and showing signs of trending. So it was going to be the next big wave of preventable chronic illness, particularly if we're
Mm.
talking about prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. My conversation for type 1 is always around helping people achieve a reasonable amount of blood sugar control, and to not beat yourself up if your blood sugar is not perfect, because with type 1 you require insulin for a lifetime. Pancreas doesn't make insulin anymore, for those who aren't aware of the difference. Pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, the opportunity to change what's going on is perhaps stronger, because the body's not under autoimmune attack to attack the pancreas making that insulin, right? So it's lifestyle. All blood sugar issues are lifestyle sensitive, which is the good news. So I felt really encouraged as a naturopathic physician to do something about that, to help people, because this is where they can take the reins and take charge. Nutrition is always going to be your bullseye. You've got the need for great quality, consistent, restorative sleep. Stress management. Stress is a bully and breaks all sorts of stuff. And if you have a pre-existing condition or a genetic issue or an environmentally influenced genetic issue, epigenetics, it's got you. It's going to take you like a bully and slam you, grab your collar and slam you up against whatever your weaknesses may be, because that's
Yeah.
what's going to show up, right? Exercise, understanding that strength training is so important because your muscles are blood sugar sponges. Fiber for your nutrition, eating it at every meal, because leafy greens, high fiber foods, they're also blood sugar sponges, right? Like I said, we could do something about this. So that's been the
Yes.
joy in my work, between working with people with heart disease or people with diabetes, or perhaps that combo, is helping them get after these root cause lifestyle centric issues, things they can do something about. And so if they want to make a difference and be healthier in a natural way, have less dependency on prescription medication, giving them the tools And for those who are serious about the work, who really want to do it, they do so, so well. It's very gratifying, very gratifying.
Oh, I bet. And this really speaks to my heart, Beverly, because my father had a triple bypass at age
Okay.
50. And I think
Wow,
it was
young.
only 2 or 3 years later he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
Mm,
He had another triple bypass, 15 years after the first one, and so many things. But here's a really interesting thing. So he was on meds for all of this.
okay.
Every year he used to go to this place in Utah where they would basically put him on, I don't know if it was vegetarian or paleo, but very strict diet, send
Yeah,
him out walking every day. And he would go off all his medications under doctor's care while
yeah,
he was there. He used to go down for about a month.
okay.
And but then he would get home, get back into the regular lifestyle, and have to start going back on stuff
See,
again.
yeah, that's the thing. So I hope everybody's listening because Jane just gave us some great pearls, right, about what works and what doesn't work. For anyone who's trying to achieve blood sugar control and be healthy, to have a healthy quality of life, get their energy back, to put life in their years and years in their life, right?
Mhm.
Once you get that secret decoder ring, to what's healthy for you gotta keep it going. If
Got to keep
lifestyle
it
is what got you in trouble, if unrecovered issues around, let's say, trauma, major stressful moments in your life, accidents, adverse reactions to medications. There's lots of paths, frankly, to different kinds of diabetes. It's not just one. People assume, and particularly with prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, that people just party their way there. And, I would love for everyone just put your judgmental side away. It's not helpful.
on.
The situation has happened. Now, once this person has uncovered how they're healthy, Jane's dad's a great example. He had wonderful guidance, did the work. But then when he went home, he went back to what he'd been doing, which he knew wasn't working, but he did it anyway. We're all human. These
Yeah.
cues around us, the people around us, the same four walls, all the other things that we're anchored to, like whatever might be on our desk, like here, I've got some post-it notes, things like that. And we start to get on autopilot, which is why we
Yes.
have to work with those micro, tiny baby step habits to make incremental improvement, change our environment, our cues, and then go forward. And it's best to do that in a community so we're not isolated.
Mhm.
And now I'm moving my work to group coaching, group health coaching programs so that people can be supported. Because the difference for the patients I've worked with over the years, clinically now 30 years, one on one, who've made it and who didn't, was they changed their mindset and they changed their habits. Therefore, when life whacked them upside the head and stuff happens, I remember one patient in particular I can think about, I was really worried for her that she would just go backwards in a big way. And for her, original work with me was on heart disease. And then later, much later, she showed up with the very early stages of prediabetes, which we were able to help her turn around. And in her case, reverse, because she's diligent about these habits, right? But she had the habits in place. So when she got a severe stress storm, as I like to call it, we'll use the word stress storm instead of thunderstorm. Um, she weathered it. She weathered the storm. Her heart continued to improve and get stronger. So all I can say, anyone listening, please be encouraged. You're getting a lot of great clues here about what works and what doesn't work.
Mhm. Interesting thing. Sounds like this show is all about my father now. But so he was a child when he was a child in England.
Mhm.
It was during the Second World War.
Okay.
He was evacuated. His father went off in the war. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And as a child, he actually had his gallbladder removed. So
Okay.
that's telling me he had digestive issues
Yeah.
even as a child. You talked about stress.
Mhm.
There like a child, this doesn't happen to a child, right? Like a healthy child. There's situations, there's things happening. So
Yeah.
how much is like stress and trauma? Because this was traumatic. Imagine,
Right.
10-year-old child or so
Sure.
being evacuated to the country. I mean, he told stories about being in the country, and these city kids put in with the country kids, and there was a lot going on there. So it was a traumatic event for him.
Absolutely.
And so how much does that play into these health issues?
Well, one of the things we can keep in mind is that the body tends to store unresolved traumas, unresolved difficulties. And if we haven't had a way to heal, to unwind, to decode those and transform them, then we are vulnerable that these things will show up later. And it's not uncommon at all when there's what's called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, when there are traumas, things of that nature, that people are routinely set up to have, specifically heart disease, diabetes, insulin resistance, weight gain and obesity. And in general, I would say hormonal disbalance. There's plenty of science and research that's been done to show that linkage. So if you would like to think of it this way, the template, the footsteps, the footprints rather, were put in place much earlier in his life, and
Yeah.
he was vulnerable to it. And in his era, I don't think in general health professionals of any stripe were particularly savvy or aware about that. Now we know,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't have been soon enough to be helpful to him.
No, but I think it's helpful for people to hear this because not everyone is hearing this even from
Right.
their doctor when they're
It's
going to
true.
the office.
It's
And look
true.
at how your doctor spent an hour with you talking, and we know from my functional medicine training, there's that whole timeline. They go right back to your whole life and what
Right.
happened, even before birth. What was your mother doing? How were you born? Was it
Right.
cesarean? Was it natural birth? Were you breastfed or not? There's all of these things that come into play in our health throughout life, and people don't really realize that. So thank you, Beverly, for shining a light on that. So you help people. It's beautiful what you're doing, helping people, and especially on the prevention side, it must be very rewarding to get people
Thank
in the
you.
pre-diabetes stage where you can really help make a difference and take them off that scale, right, and bring
Right.
them back down the scale again.
Yeah.
So you're so passionate about this. You decided to host a summit on this topic. So let's hear a little bit about your summit that's coming up.
Sure. So for my summit, the Diabetes Transformation Summit, we have a wonderful lineup of speakers, and we talk about 360 degrees of the things that go on in the world of diabetes. We have content specific for people who are looking for more information about blood sugar, and to make sure that they themselves understand it, as well as their team, their health team understands it. There's content that's also for the health professional, people looking to get the latest from some of our experts, leaders in the field, as well as folks who simply either have a blood sugar problem or care about someone who does, because we know this can impact multiple people in a family and a social structure, and it's good for more people to be informed. So each day of the summit, we have 6 or 7 speakers, and then their topics, and that speaker is the focus of the day, and then the next day, et cetera, across the 7 days. So each of the days of the summit itself is free. And if people want to be able to keep access to that content, we have different content packages for sale, and they can purchase it and then access it 24/7, 365 at their own convenience, which is really great to be able to go back and refer. You can get the transcripts. You can read, listen, or watch, whatever is your favorite way to get information in, and just know what's current in the world today. Like, if you're going to use a CGM, continuous glucose monitor, what's that about? Can it be more broadly used, let's say, for metabolic health as a bigger umbrella? The answer is yes. Fantastic insights in terms of health data and knowing what you're doing is working well, or maybe it's not. Like, what if you're eating, say, quinoa or blueberries, and you've been told those are healthy? And yeah, those are healthy foods, low on the glycemic index, blah, blah, blah. But for some reason, your body is having an unusual reaction. You maybe have a blood sugar spike and then a crash, right? Or maybe you get on the blood sugar roller coaster with eating what are supposed to be healthy foods. If you have a CGM, you have real-time data, and you'll know within 15 minutes what's going on. So you can look at your CGM 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour and a half, 2 hours later, without having to do a finger stick to get the drop of blood and then use glucometer. And glucometer and test strips are fine. That's a fine way to go get data, but for a lot of people, it's painful and uncomfortable. CGM, you put it on once, and it's good depending on the CGM for 7 to 14 days. And then you just use your phone, your smartphone, get the data, have a look, and know what's going on. Maybe you had a stressful Zoom call. Or you don't like Zoom, whatever it might be, right? And you can see your blood sugar's going up. You can go and do some wall sits, wall squats, whatever. So when you go to the summit, you get really great information. You get all sorts of downloads. Like I have one, simple, tasty recipes for diabetes. It's gluten-free, wheat-free, and delicious. It's not taste-free.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so much you can do. That's so interesting about the continuous glucose monitor, how you can see the effects of food, but then you mentioned exercise as well. So you can see the effects of exercise on your blood sugar levels.
Yep.
And what about sleep? How does sleep affect blood sugar levels?
A lot of people have complete chaos with their sleep, and it's kind of interesting. We're seeing some of these problems trend downward. So younger people showing up with them. So when you and I went through any kind of medical training, right? Functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, if someone went to conventional, allopathic, Western medicine, Chinese medicine, chiropractic, osteopathic, like everybody, right? Ayurvedic, anyone's medical school books would have said that type 1 diabetes was childhood onset. In fact, it was called juvenile diabetes.
Yeah.
And that type 2 diabetes happened in people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Older people, not middle age, not young adults, and certainly not kids. Now they've crisscrossed, right? Adults absolutely show up with type 1 diabetes. That's been a
Mm.
shocker. Even more of a shocker has been to see type 2 diabetes show up in kids as young as 8. You know a lot's wrong when that's happening, right? And
Right.
children look to adults to lead them. That's one of the reasons why in the summit we talk about different things for different age ranges. We have pediatricians, we have dentists talking about breastfeeding and the development of that oral airway and avoiding sleep apnea, which is a great cause of type 2 diabetes and prediabetes because the body's awash in the stress of not breathing. Therefore,
Mm.
as those stress hormones go up, cortisol, right? They can go up from trauma, they can go up from not breathing. There's lots of reasons why cortisol goes up. When it's a chronic event, your body keeps releasing that extra glucose, that extra blood sugar to meet the fight or flight stressor. But in that situation, you're not working it off. Those big, beautiful muscles are not being blood sugar sponges because you're probably either trying to sleep, struggling to sleep, or you're seated, you're not working. Therefore, your blood sugar over time is higher and higher and higher. It's a classic way to wind up with diabetes. People often wonder, how does this happen to me? It took 10 to 20 years for this to get in motion, but there you are.
Mm. That's amazing. So, a lot of variation of different topics all around the umbrella topic of diabetes.
All
What is
around it, in part because people have this idea that it's about eat less and move more. In today's world is more nuanced, and there's plenty of people who are eating less, moving more, and whose blood sugar is
it?
not achieving good control. One of the things I admire about you and your work and where we overlap with pain is that chronic pain, chronic inflammation can be a way that diabetes gets started.
Yeah.
There's absolute overlap, and people in pain often are not able to exercise in a way that's helpful or meaningful, which is unfortunate because it's a real trap. It becomes this nasty, vicious cycle. So I respect you for taking on a topic as challenging as pain, given that we know what an issue this is really all around the world at this point. Good
Oh,
on
it
you,
is.
Jane. Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Beverly. And I've got a summit coming up as well. But first of all, the dates of my summit are the 18th to the 24th of July. Yours is a couple weeks after mine. What are the dates of your summit?
It's actually the next week. It's July 25th to the 31st.
Oh, the next week. Okay. So everyone should schedule some time so they can watch these summits, or as you said, just buy them and then you've got access to them in
Yep.
your health library all the time.
Yeah.
So this is fantastic. And summits can change lives. I know that because summits changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
You hear people who have their whole career has been specialized in this topic, and then
Right.
you get to hear that in just 40 minutes, you get to hear everything. To get that condensed information in such a short time is such a valuable tool for people.
Right.
So thank you for putting that together. And I know diabetes was a big part of my life, seeing my father go through that and knowing at the time that actually it was probably undiagnosed pre-diabetes that led to his heart condition.
Yeah.
Which was,
You're probably right. A lot of times the tests were never run. At this point, I think in people's home health kits, how you probably have Band-Aids, maybe gauze, perhaps a thermometer. Well, you should have a thermometer in your home health kit, right? You should put in a glucometer, or get a prescription or if you otherwise have access, get a CGM for a few weeks or a month. Wear it, use it, and find out what is your blood sugar doing in specific aspects of your life. How does it work for you overnight? A lot of people, when they go to sleep, particularly either they might have a blood sugar low and it keeps waking them up. And if you're a person who wakes up frequently in the middle of the night and you don't even need to pee, you just keep waking up, it could be blood sugar lows. Your body perceives that as an immediate threat that doesn't have enough energy and it wakes you up. For instance,
So I didn't have diabetes, but I got a not a continuous glucose monitor, but a glucose tester, blood sugar
Hmm.
tester, because I wanted to know some of those things with my autoimmune. I shouldn't say my. I don't want to
Sure.
own it. With the autoimmune condition that I was diagnosed with, I wanted to know. One of the problems I had was waking up at night, and it wasn't due
Mm.
to pain anymore. So I was like, "What is it?" And I that was one of the things I was able to rule out
Yes.
actually
Yes.
with that tool. So it was another piece of information that helped me, problem
Yes.
solve, right? Exactly
Problem
what we
solved,
talked
right?
about in the beginning, the problem solving where how can I, is it a blood sugar issue? Let's find out.
Yeah.
So when I woke up at night, I was actually testing to see what is it. No, it was fine. So that wasn't the issue. It was, had to find
Right.
out what it was. But
Right.
it was just such a great tool to figure out the blood doesn't lie, right?
Blood
We,
doesn't lie. Test, don't guess. You'd be surprised.
Exactly, exactly. But I love the way that these tools really are in people's hands and they can do it themselves.
I think it's great, and I'm looking forward to more of that. I think the
Yeah,
health data is just provides these objective personal insights that you can use then to further tailor your actions so that you can have the level of health that you so richly deserve. And if you are frustrated, if you've hit a plateau, like sometimes people with type 2 diabetes, let's say they get stuck at an A1C, a blood sugar chronic long-term measurement of say 7.5, and maybe they're there for years, and from perhaps their doctor's point of view, they're stable. And sometimes I've had people send me messages or otherwise when they're part of programs talk about, I could not get the doctor to write a prescription. If you're here in the US, this is how it works typically, a prescription for the CGM, a continuous glucose monitor. But I wanted to be healthier. I wanted to know more about my own health. To me as a doctor, when your patient says that this is what they want to do, if you're a coach, this is what your client's after, support them, help them. And sometimes they're met with a lot of skepticism or cynicism, where it's like, oh, you're not special. You're not going to be able to make a difference. And they'll be told, oh, your A1C is stable. Just stay on your meds, your regimen. You're okay. Forget about it. Right. And I always feel like that's the wrong answer. Instead, meet the person where they're at. They want to try to get a healthier number for blood sugar, and 7.5 is not in the healthy range. You actually want that thing at 5.6 or lower. I think having it from somewhere between 4.8 to 5.2 is really optimal if you can get there. Meanwhile, you got to know what the trends are. So if someone is stuck in a mindset where they don't believe in your ability to be well, you might really want to reevaluate who's on your health team, because that's really not fair to you. Don't let someone hold you hostage, which is exactly what sometimes happens around your own health results, because they won't be there with you as you get older and you're struggling with all the other consequences of having a blood sugar that is too high. The loss of vision and going blind, peripheral neuropathy, and shooting, stabbing pains, or going numb from your fingertips to your toes, your pelvic floor, your clitoris, or your penis, sexual function gone, damage to your kidneys, heart disease, heart disease, heart disease as an overlapping chronic complication with diabetes, infections, your immune system being compromised, wounds that won't heal. It's quite a list. If you're trying to avoid that, if you're trying to be preventive, if you're trying to go to the healthier side, make sure your team is on board. Because I'm
Mhm.
shocked at how often that happens. I really am.
I'm so glad you talked about that list and if you will want to avoid them because I'm sure most people want to avoid them. They probably think they can't. They're probably just accepting, well, this is my lot in life. What can I do? But you're telling people something different. They'll learn
Yep.
about that on your summit, which is
Yep.
fantastic. I've shared the link there to join up for Beverly's summit. You can sign up for free and watch it for those days, or you can choose to buy it, whichever you want. Okay, so Beverly, I always ask my guests one last question. So this is a show is all about being intentional, right?
Yes.
Intentional living, designing a life where you can be healthier. So what is one action someone could take today? I love the baby steps. So when we talk about what's something you could do today, it's a
Hmm.
baby step, and then you just keep building on those baby steps. So what would you recommend?
A baby step that I would recommend, because this is one of those root cause issues, is whenever you've finished your last food for the day, and hopefully it's an actual meal, it's dinner, right? Go and brush and floss your teeth right then.
Ah,
Right? Take care of your dental health. It's a powerful signal to your brain, your mind. Hey, I'm done eating for the day. right? If you're the kind of person who maybe has unconscious snacking habits, um, etc., it just brings a lot with it. It's also telling you, oh, I'm probably going to be in bed, let's say 3 hours from now, 5 hours from now. So if you struggle with a regular bedtime, this helps anchor it, right? And you're starting to tell yourself, oh, I should be in the calm, wind down part of the day. Now is the time to be away from screens, to be away from strong lights, the blue light off of electronic kinds of screens. Nothing stressful. Don't open up your email. Don't go on social media. Don't look at the news. Do have a calm, clear process to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Do go to sleep with the intention of having a great restorative night of sleep, and do have a clear transition. Same way you wouldn't expect, I don't think, a young child to go from running around on the playground, screaming and having a great time to asleep within 15 minutes at nighttime, right? Most of us, if we've ever had a chance to care for children or if we remember our own childhood, if you had a peaceful childhood, and I'm so sorry if you didn't, but if you had a peaceful childhood, you probably had a very specific set of steps that preceded actually getting in the bed and putting your head on the pillow, right? Maybe you had a bath before bedtime and jammies and a nighttime story. If you didn't have that kind of childhood, you can create this now. You can reclaim that as part of your healing as an adult. Do whatever would be appropriate for you. Maybe it's chamomile tea. Maybe it's reading poetry. Maybe it's meditation. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe it's listening to music, chanting, nature sounds. I sometimes play like the sound of rain. For
Yeah.
instance, I happen to find that very soothing. Whatever works. We have so many ways now to set the stage for our own transition to sleep and defend that sleep world. Make sure you have what you need. I just ordered a different set of blackout curtains for our master bedroom because the ones that we have are just old. They just need to be replaced, right? But I looked very carefully in the comments and I saw some that said darkening curtains and drapes. And I was like, no, I want blackout because I want it to be when it's time to sleep. It's time to sleep.
Love it. Love it. What a great suggestion. So focus on your sleep and start it with brushing and flossing your teeth right after your last meal.
Yeah,
Ah, that is so good, Beverly. And you know what? We know how much dental health is associated with other aspects of health, and
it
actually
is.
the root cause of some diseases in the body as well.
Yep,
So
yep.
thank you so much for that. Beverly, where can people find out more about you? We've got the link to the summit, but where
Okay.
can they find, what's your website?
They're welcome to go to my website as well to connect. That is DR, like the abbreviation for doctor. So DrBeverlyYates. So drbeverlyyates.com.
Okay. drbeverlyyates.com. We'll have the link there as well in the comments. This has been so great today. I just love the work that you're doing. I love your enthusiasm. I love your smarts and just how you pull it all together for everyone. So, Dr. Beverly Yates, thank you so much for being a guest today on Wellness by Design.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation, Jane, and I wish you every success in your work. It's groundbreaking to be able to offer people pain solutions that don't involve addictive medicines. Good for you.
Oh, thank you, Beverly. And thanks everyone for watching either live or the replay or listening, and have a beautiful day yourselves. Bye.